Hello everybody, Megazord X here, back at it again to give you all another very exciting video. And yes, we're in the midst of the early parts of 2024. And while everybody might be having their New Year resolutions and stuff and trying to keep track of that and stuff, you know what? I just want to take the time to go out and reflect on all these great games we managed to get in 2023. And yes, it's that time of year where I sit down in the month of January and discuss my personal picks for my game of the year. Now, I have a third place, a second place, and a first place, but before we get into any of that, I'm gonna go ahead and throw out a few honorable mentions before that, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes with 3, 2, and 1 now. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. All right, let's go ahead and jump up into the first honorable mention that I have for here on my list. And while these might not be in any kind of set order, you know, this is just my honorable mentions that I could not squeeze into a top 3 list right here. So first off, I have none other than Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. Now, many of y'all might be thinking, well, isn't this a DLC expansion thing? And yes, that is 100% right though, but this is my list, my rules, and it's the only one that's like DLC related. Everything else are full-blown games though. The lead up that we had up until Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has been phenomenal. I went through and started playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2, went back and played 1, then played 3 though, but then you had all of these other things like Future Connected, you had Torna, the Golden Country, and now Future Redeemed basically lumped together all the stories that you experienced from 1, 2, and 3 up into this grand finale conclusion. It's just something that a lot of Xenoblade fans out there have been truly dreaming of and seeing how this trilogy was going to come to an end. It was such a gratifying ending nonetheless, especially with that radio and how it kind of tied in a whole bunch of things though. But you really want to be able to actually truly take for granted, you know, this whole entire experience, and really would love this DLC if you had not managed to go through and play every single game with the DLCs associated with each and every individual game though. But that was such a phenomenal, great experience, great conclusion, wrap up. I had to give it an honorable mention. All right, my second honorable mention is gonna have to go to Pikmin 4. Now, Pikmin 4, I really like the Pikmin series. Don't get me wrong on it. I played the first one, might have not been the whole entire game. Played 3, and then, you know, I wanted to really get into 4 though, but rarely ever will go out in 100% games. Like, I don't think I even managed 100% Super Mario 64. I got close with games like Mario Galaxy 2 and stuff like that, and I actually managed 100%, you know, Mario Odyssey, but very rare for me to actually put that much time into going through and 100% in the game. And Pikmin 4 just happened to be one of those games for me though. Such a great experience is going through and collecting all those different treasures, going through and doing all your multitasking, or should I say Dandorian and stuff. And I'm like, you know, Pikmin 4 is just an honorable, really great game, at least for me personally. Ochi was definitely MVP. If I had like a buddies list of 2023, he definitely up there because he did a lot more work than all those other crew members that happen to be, you know, stranded on that spaceship out in the middle of nowhere on planet Earth. So I'm like, yeah, you know, props off to my boy over there, Ochi. You're the real one, man. You're the real one though. But Pikmin 4 definitely had to be one of my honorable mentions. All right, my number 3 honorable mention will have to go to Hogwarts Legacy. You know, anticipating for quite a bit of time in its lead up to launch. You know, I'm a really big Harry Potter fan. Say what you will about the discourse and stuff like that, though. I still want to reward the developers that worked really hard on this game, because if you're going through and watching some of those Harry Potter movies or books or something like that, this is probably the best adaptation game I have seen thus far, even comparing some of those old school things that we got on older generations and stuff. Like, this is probably the most accurate to a Harry Potter experience I have ever seen or ever experienced experience though. Everything from your spell casting, the story that they managed to build off of, just exploring the halls of, Hogwarts, and then just seeing the other lands outside in it, flying around on your broom and stuff like that, taking down big monsters, the stealth moments, just the all-out action moments. There's a lot of great things up in this thing and a lot of cool references to the books, the movies, and everything else in between though. I was always just wondering what in the world could I do next, or what will be the next experience that I would manage to pull off. And I'm like, oh shoot, this was just a great and extremely phenomenal game. If you happen to be a Harry Potter fan, don't sleep on this if you hadn't already done so though. I know you can get it on the PS5 and Xbox Series system. Those probably be your preferences of just the highest graphics and highest quality in general. I know you can get it on, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and even the Nintendo Switch version. Somehow they managed to pull a miracle with that version though. But nonetheless, I definitely had to give my props and kudos to Hogwarts Legacy. And lastly, for my very last honorable mention, it has to go to none other than Super Mario Wonder. Now, Super Mario Wonder is a great and phenomenal game. It was really close to getting in there in terms of my top 3 game of the year picks, but it just fell a little bit shy. But that's no, skin off the bone for this great experience that was in Super Mario Bros. Wonder right here. Everything that I personally wanted to see within a brand new entry within the 2D line for the Mario series has been answered into this. I did not want another traditional new Super Mario Brothers experience that we got from everything from the DS all the way up until the Wii U. Like, I was tired of that formula, but Super Mario Bros. Wonder wasn't afraid to get weird, get a little freaky, get a little funky over there. Like, they managed to do so many different experiences with the Wonder Flower effect where it kind of kept me on my toes just thinking about what could possibly happen next to Mario and his friends within this grand experience within the Flower Kingdom. It wasn't even within the Mushroom Kingdom. It was within the Flower Kingdom. And it had so many different unique environments and stuff like that. The music was great and stuff. It had some really good challenges. I would say a lot more challenging moments in this game in comparison to some of the other past 2D Marios and stuff. And I would say this is definitely up there with Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario Bros. World in terms of just my overall enjoyment and maybe the longevity when we go back and look at this game 5, maybe even 10 years back here from now though. So honestly, it's a really good experience though. I loved every single moment of it, and I nearly went through and beat almost every single level up in this game. Something I don't normally do within a lot of 2D Marios though. But overall, really great experience. Nintendo, kudos to you for finally making a great 2D Mario game. All right, so that about does it in terms of all of my 4 honorable mentions. Some really good games. I couldn't manage to squeeze every game up in this list though, but I definitely wanted to highlight those 4 games in particular. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and finally jump into my top 3 Game of the Year nominations. So starting off at number 3, we have none other than this. Final Fantasy 16. Yes, that is the number 3 pick for my game of the year. Man, oh man, it almost didn't even manage to hit my number 3 because originally, I know this game came out in the middle of summer around like the month of June, and I didn't manage to actually pick it up and play through it myself until like late November, early December though. And at first I was going through and experiencing Clyde's story and stuff. He seemed kind of okay as a character. I wasn't super attached to him, nothing like that. I didn't think that this game would be nearly as medieval as, what I saw from the trailers and stuff. I knew I kind of wanted just to try out a new Final Fantasy game. And it was interesting with this one being predominantly action versus, the older school Final Fantasy being turn-based and stuff like that. But I was willing to give this one a shot just to kind of see where the Final Fantasy series was from this point. And the more and more I constantly played through this game, the more and more I noticed, I was like, okay, I'm digging this a little bit more. You had your different combos and stuff like that, where you're able to use a certain amount of set moves, just do your standard, 1, 2, 3 combos and stuff. And and get certain special combos from your icons and stuff. You're able to equip up to 3 at most though, but in the early parts of the game, you only were able to use 1. And then slowly but surely, as you add more icons to your arsenal and stuff like that, the more things you were able to do in terms of your combos and stuff like that, doing things up in the air and then doing things down low and then doing your specials and stuff like that. And then those icon fights, oh shoot, man. I was like, they had some really cool boss fights with those icons versus icons up in there. And I would definitely say the turning point for me in this game was definitely that fight that you had with Titan. If you played this game, you know exactly what I'm talking about right there. Everything from the music to the, just the grand story that was actually playing out between these two characters at that point though. And then just that showdown and stuff. It was just a grand spectacle just seeing these Titans and, and these icons and stuff just going at each other like that. It was just a visual treat for the eyes. I just love every little bit of it. And then Clive as a character just continued to grow up on me though. Torgal, once again, if I had a pet companion list for 2023, he's definitely up there though. He was definitely the MVP boy right there though, but great partner right there. And obviously Clive's interactions with Jill and stuff like that. Obviously you lost some characters along the way though, but the characters he managed to keep and build and get stronger with though, and it's like, oh shoot. And Clive this whole time having to go through and just kind of deal with himself personally and the thoughts that he thought he killed his brother and stuff like that. And then just seeing, the whole story play out. It was just a great, phenomenal experience. I love every single moment within Final Fantasy 16. We even have some DLC that's upcoming. We got one little part that's out right now with another part coming out a little later in 2024 though. So I'm just waiting on both parts to be released. That way I can just go through and play that extra 10 hours that's going to add up into the game though. But nonetheless though, Final Fantasy 16 is a wonderful, fantastic game. I don't care what kind of discourse that's out there, people that don't like the action-based because they really want turn-based or whatnot though. That thought aside, this is still great and I will still highly recommend it because it is my number 3 pick for Game of the Year. All right, and my number 2 pick for Game of the Year is none other than this. Yes, Tears of the Kingdom is my number 2 pick for Game of the Year. Now, this one, at one point of the year, before another game happened to drop out a little later than this, it was technically gonna be my number 1 pick of the year, and I didn't think anything would come close to it like Final Fantasy 16 or said the first place spot. I would thought that probably would have knocked Tears of the Kingdom down to the number 2 spot though, but nonetheless, this is still a great and phenomenal game. I've been looking forward to playing Tears of the Kingdom ever since they managed to announce, what was it, almost like 4 or 5 years ago, that yes, the Tears of the Kingdom or Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild announcement for the sequel for it was revealed. And I was like, man, oh man. And the different stuff they managed to do from the surface, they managed to add stuff within the sky and a complete whole underground experience area. I'm like, man, you know what? I didn't think they could take the map of Hyrule and multiply that by like 2.5. That's essentially what they did with the world map though. But the traversal that you can do between the depths, the surface, and the sky is just completely insane. The fact there's no loading screens up in there though, I just didn't think they would be able to one-up themselves from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom. Now, while that wow factor might not necessarily be there because it's kind of the same concept as Breath of the Wild though, nonetheless, by the time you do the stuff with Ultra Hand and the fuse ability, then that kind of opens up the floodgates even more so with all the different kind of abilities that you're able to do. You're able to craft and build different things. It's like, I remember even going through, what is it, like the Fire Temple within Tears of the Kingdom, and you were supposed to go about it a certain way, and I was like, you know what, forget this. I made like one of them hovercraft things where I can just freely kind of fly around and go anywhere, and I just kind of cheesed my way through a whole entire dungeon. Like, you can't normally do that stuff within, Legend of Zelda games. Call it a blessing, call it a curse though. It's just kind of nice to be able to do exactly what you want to do without really as many restrictions as you would normally experience within any other game. But nonetheless, though, Tears of the Kingdom, I would definitely say the story was a lot better than Breath of the Wild. Between you going out and collecting all the different tiers and stuff like that, and then obviously you trying to go through and defeat Ganondorf and stuff like that, I felt like, you know, the personal attachment between Link and Ganondorf in this one was a lot more stronger than between like Calamity Ganon that was in Breath of the Wild though. So I felt like the plot was there. It felt like you had more of a sense of community. The world was a little bit more alive. You had more NPCs and stuff that were kind of going there throughout Link's adventure. You're able to help these people out, even like doing raids and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different side quests up in there, and I still hadn't managed to go through and do everything that was possibly available up in the game, but I managed to do most of the main mission stuff though. But nonetheless, a really great, phenomenal game, Tears of the Kingdom. If you hadn't already done so, you should definitely pick up that game though. But it goes without saying, it definitely deserved my number 2 spot for Game of the Year. And lastly, my number 1 pick for Game of the Year is none other than this. Yes, Spider-Man 2 is my number 1 pick for Game of the Year. Honestly, I was going back and forth between Spider-Man 2 and Tears of the Kingdom as number 1 and number 2. The second that Spider-Man 2 was done, I was saying that was number 1. Tears of the Kingdom was number 2. Then I let it marinate a little bit. Then I flipped it again, flipped it again. I was like, I was still kind of going back and forth between this, even up until before I was recording this video though. But nonetheless, I would say with Spider-Man 2, with all of the improvements they managed to do from this in comparison to Miles Morales, as well as the first Spider-Man, the 2018 version, the story just hit me on a whole nother level, especially Venom. Venom is technically one of my most favorite Marvel villains in general though, and I was like, oh shoot, I just couldn't get enough of this character as a whole though. He was just great, the way how they kind of story wrote him up in there. I felt like not even just Venom, but the introduction of Lizard up in the story, Sandman, as well as Kraven the Hunter. I thought Kraven had a lot of good moments up in this game though. It was just freaking phenomenal, especially that one segment where we got to see Venom for the first time. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And oh shoot, I'm definitely looking forward to, you know, a follow-up to some of those events that happened in that game. But seeing the different interactions between Peter Parker and Miles Morales, as well as Mary Jane, and also Harry as well though, I just love seeing all the different interactions they managed to do within their different groups, and just kind of seeing how Peter Parker was kind of going through his next phase of life. And then you also have Miles, who was also trying to go through and apply and get into other colleges and stuff like that. This is definitely a little bit more a transitional Spider-Man game. Like you can kind of see the direction of where, you know, the whole entire Spider-Man, because we're supposed to be getting a Spider-Man 3 some point in the future and whatnot though, but you can kind of see where the mantle is kind of being slowly passed off though. But I just love the different interaction between Miles as well as Peter Parker though. And you know, Coney Island stuff, that was really nice. It's kind of changing up the pacing of things like that as well though. And then I love all the different combat stuff you're able to do in this game, as well as the stealth stuff. Even a lot of the stuff within the skill tree and stuff, I noticed that the stuff that you had to unlock within the first game in Miles Morales, you actually had a lot of that stuff already unlocked as a default, and then you were just kind of going a little bit more into like things like that were dedicated towards or tailored towards the symbiote suit, as well as a few other things I won't mention for those that hadn't really got that deep in the game yet though, or haven't experienced it yet. But yeah, honestly, overall, Spider-Man 2 was a great, phenomenal game. The story was extremely good, and you know, it's just crazy to see that movie experience within an actual video game. Like some moments you will be, I'll go through and play and I'm like, dang, I'm like, I know I'm playing this game though, but it also feels like I'm watching a movie. Like this is that good. And Insomniac Games is up there along with Monolith Soft as, you know, two of my most highly praised studios in terms of just the quality they managed to put out with the given resources that they managed to have and to be able to work with though. But nonetheless though, Spider-Man 2 is a great and extremely phenomenal experience. I just hold dear to my heart. It was really close between Spider-Man 2 as well as Tears of the Kingdom, but ultimately Spider-Man 2 managed to win my number 1 pick for Game of the Year, something that the Game Awards just didn't feel like giving any rewards to Spider-Man 2. That kind of felt, rubbed me at least the wrong way though. But nonetheless though, I had to give it the recognition it rightfully deserves. So yeah, so that about does it in terms of all of my picks for Game of the Year. I have 4 strong honorable mentions though, along with my top 3 being Final Fantasy 16, then Tears of the Kingdom, and lastly Spider-Man 2. But y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below what all do you think about my personal picks for Game of the Years. I'm curious to see what would be your top 3 picks for Game of the Year as well though. Obviously all this stuff is subjective though, but this is some of the best I just managed to play in 2023, and I'm really looking forward to all these great games that we're going to be going through and experiencing that will be dropping out in the year of 2024. So that's going to basically do it in terms of today's video though. So if you really like this, make sure you're going to hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So remember y'all, until whatever video I make next, see y'all.